And now, as we discuss what's going on in Charlotte, we'll go back to the last match at 7:30 that we have yet to talk about. And there's a reason. Because there's somebody in Washington, D.C. that we get to talk to about said match. And this is where we bring in Jason. Morning, Jason. Oh, Wi-Fi, wonky Wi-Fi.
Duh.
Oh, there he is.
I'm going to be fading in and out.
Yes, you are. You will be fading in and out this morning.
How about we do this?
Save some bandwidth?
Maybe a little
bandwidth.
A little bit.
Okay. So we'll try it this
Maybe
way.
not.
So how is – no, you're good. I've got you so far. I've got you. You got your ears on? I got you. There. Yeah, we got you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay. So how is DC? He asked.
It's hot. It's people are freaking out about how hot it is.
So how hot
for us who live in Georgia? But no, it's good. They'll go back and check it out. Everything on Off the Woodwork from 92.9 The Game had a long America. Stephen Caldwell of TSN. We talked Scotland. We talked Canada. Atlanta United's new assistant coach. So lots of stuff has been going on, and we get ready for the game.
And the news that came out this morning, 10 o'clock, was that Matt Edwards and Matias Gajardo were signed to short-term deals to help out with the roster and filling it out for this particular match with DC. And we have mentioned that it is going to be one of those get to know your twos and get to know them intimately in this situation. But when I mentioned Gajardo and Matt Edwards to you, what do they bring to the table?
In Edwards' situation, because it's his last short-term call-up. I know these rules are complicated and silly. Call-ups, you can play in 2 MLS games. The call-ups are not related to the number of games you play in the Open Cup. For able to play in the Open Cup in the quarterfinal, and he's been part of the last 2 Open Cup wins. It's, again, a dumb rule that MLS and the MLS Players Association have. Situations with guys like Edwards, who has, I think, shown at the second team level that he can play and he can contribute, and you'd like to be able to use your reserve team in that way. Matias Gajardo is another one who, in previous situations where you might have wanted to use him, you didn't have an international spot. Well, now you do right now, so you can bring him on this trip. The short-term call-up, you can play them in both games because it is about the number of days that they are called up, and neither one has played in MLS. It's Edwards' last call-up, so he's done with call-ups for the year. Regardless, you'd have to sign him to an MLS deal to use him again in anything. And Gajardo, if he plays in both games, even though he'd have other call-ups, he wouldn't be able to be called back up to be used. He could be called up for Open Cup, which is a whole different conversation, and that's your math today.
I was going to say, we were talking about the math that's associated with it. And if you were God of rules, if you were the one who was in charge of these kinds of things, we did come to the consensus that it is a silly rule and that you can only have 4 and that you can only be in 2 matches, that kind of a thing. How would you adjust this to where if you were in a roster crunch, whether numbers or injuries or whatever, how would you adjust the rule to make it fit?
Well, the way you have to adjust it, because the limitation, and this has come up with Open Cup and rosters and complaints from people about MLS teams saying they're not as interested in the Open Cup because they can't play their reserve players because of the situations like we're dealing right now with Edwards.
Right.
The way you have to do it is it's twofold. You either have to go back to the drawing board with the MLS Players Association and get them to back off of the stance that you have to limit how many times you can use players who are in your second team who are not members of the Players Association. they're taking spots of members of the Players Association. That's the debate. Or you deal with the Players Association and you say that MLS Next Pro players who are on professional contracts, they need to become members of the Players Association. And then the Players Association grows. And then you can get rid of these kinds of dumb limitations. Now, if you want to have some limitations on reserve players being able to play with the first team, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, because you can't let teams get away from your roster rules and size limits and all those kinds of things. Don't ever buy into the Fantasyland argument that somebody's going to sign a designated player deal with LA Galaxy 2. It's not happening. Nobody's doing that. So we can stop with that aspect of it. Let's live in the real world. You shouldn't be able to rotate through 50 guys if that's what you want to do between your first and your second team, and max it out and just rotate and use it freely. If you want to put a limitation on it, that's fine. It should be more than 4 short-term call-ups. Open Cup games should be exempt from it. Leagues Cup games should be exempt from it. Those should be opportunities, if clubs so choose, to use their reserve teams to get that kind of a feel here. But it's going to have to come with the Players Association. Either you need to make MLS Next Pro players members of the MLSPA, or the MLSPA is going to need to be convinced, probably financially, that this is the way that teams need to operate.
So coming into this matchup, 8 and 33 days, I think, regardless of competitions.
I can't keep up anymore.
I know it's horrendous. It is going to end up at points being a Choose Your Atlanta United 2's adventure coloring book. But we got to see a little bit of that with folks that we've seen for a long time in the matchup against Houston. Luke Brennan comes in because of the injury to Edwin Mosqueda. Mosqueda is now out 3 to 4 weeks, and then recovery time either adds or subtracts to that, but that was the number that was given yesterday. Luke came in and was the Luke Brennan that we've seen and raising all kinds of hell. And obviously it's going to be a focal point to keep an eye on Luke going forward. But what are you anticipating coming out of Houston and heading into DC with the youth that will be on display with Noah and Luke and others that are going to be a part of this process?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Luke was really good on Saturday, but that doesn't mean he is going to be really good the next time out, because he's a young player, and consistency is the challenge for young players. I think we've watched Noah Cobb kind of get through that consistency issue this season, to where you're seeing the same Noah Cobb pretty much game to game. And that number of whatever the quality of the performance you want to put on it, it's been steady, and it's also steadily risen. That's good. Young players, especially like Brendan, who has not started an MLS game yet, he's going to have some bad games mixed in with some good games. That's just the trajectory of a young player. So that's why coaches are careful. That's why coaches are going to bring them along slowly, because you don't want that bad game to then affect their confidence and have them play in a different manner. Brennan's a guy who is successful when he is playing with confidence. So you got to continue to feed that. And if that means he starts tonight, if that means he comes off the bench tonight, if that means he's just part of the trip and maybe he plays on Saturday, it depends on what's best for the group as a whole and what's best for his long-term development. So it's the same for Noah Cobb. That's the same for, although he's further along now, he's not in Caleb Wiley territory, but he's getting there. Efrain Morales is another one who is kind of in Luke Brennan's spot of a little bit of MLS experience, but not much. Still somebody that you're wanting to get through to that next side. Edwards and Gallardo are kind of the next ones coming up from the twos in that. Nick Firmino's honestly not far off of that as well. Someone who I think has had the challenge this year of going back and forth, which isn't easy, but that's how you break through. That's how you get to the next level. It's very rare you see players from a second team or an academy anywhere in the world who, when they make their debut with the first team, they immediately jump into the starting lineup and they play every game and every minute after. It's a very hard transition, and it does take some time. So keep that in mind with Brennan. If he doesn't play tonight, if he doesn't start tonight, if he plays limited minutes tonight, keep that in mind. This is a process. This is not an overnight thing.
Croatia now leading Albania 2-1 in the 90th minute.
I still think Croatia is washed, but Albania has fallen apart before our eyes.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Albania and Ukraine were two of the teams that I was looking at to advance out of group, but I think that Albania has just run out of gas here. And
You
Croatia,
picked that?
I said that they'd get out of group. Yeah, I said Albania would get out of group, and I said that Ukraine would get out of group.
Were you imbibing when you made those picks?
Well, I mean, I didn't say they were going to be second or thirds, but I did say that they were going to get out of groups.
Whew, Ukraine, okay, maybe, but that's bold on Albania. I don't think it's going to pay off.
Well, and I was leaning into the washed Croatia. That's what I was kind of leaning into that. Yeah, well, at least we get a triple header today with match day 2s that we can actually watch on television. When it comes to DC, I know that we're all drawn to their redwood that they have at the point. He was silenced by Charlotte on the weekend. If you were a defensive coordinator and you had the task of either slowing down and or making Benteke irrelevant in a match, how would you go about doing it?
One, if I was a defensive coordinator, it'd be in a completely different sport. So that's the first thing.
True.
We need to get some defensive coordinators and offensive coordinators into MLS. That'd be interesting. I mean, look, he's going to win his aerial duels. There's nothing you're going to do about that unless you have Stian Gregerson, which if you do, is not going to be for very long tonight. So physically, you don't have a matchup that is great. So you need to limit his effectiveness in dangerous areas when he wins aerial duels. When he wins them on direct play, you need to limit his options on where he heads the ball to, where he flicks it on. I think most importantly, you need to deny the ball being played to him in the first place. And whether that is being played long by the goalkeeper, by the center backs, you need to be on point in pressuring the ball in those moments. And if the ball gets wide and you're into the attacking third, you need to defend the crosses better. And look, that's a gamble that against somebody like Benteke, I think you have to take more of. You know, we had this conversation after the first game of the season against Columbus and their goal, and a lot of people yelling and screaming about, you know, Brooks Lennon should have charged out there and closed it down quicker. Well, if he does, then there's more passes through and it's easier to pick out a pass. So the gamble is you like to stay compact and you like to be patient defensively in your defensive third. Okay, well, it's a different scenario this time around. They have one looming, gigantic, huge threat who has already hurt you this season. So it's worth, in this case, being a little more risky in terms of jumping out to press crossing opportunities, trying to take that away. If that means the fullback or the midfielder cuts around that fullback and hopefully doesn't put in a cross right then, but tries to drive in, okay, I'll take my gamble there. I'll rather have Stroud or Herrera or someone else trying to put the ball in the back of the net than being able to pick out Christian Benteke with a header. So you have to maybe approach that aspect a little bit differently here. But I think where you can really have impact against DC United is not high pressing in the sense that you're going to give the ball away, but when the ball turns over, don't let them launch it. Their center backs, their defensive mid, their goalkeeper, they want to launch the ball to Benteke and start the play in the attacking half from his head. Don't let him launch it. You're not going to win the aerial duels with him a lot of times, so don't make that what the game comes down to. Don't let them launch. Step out on crosses. Try to find those opportunities to disrupt DC rather than having, you know, Noah Cobb or Derek Williams go up against somebody who's got a few inches and quite a few pounds on you.
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely got a few LBs on.
We have an update in the Euros.
Oh, hang on. All right, see how many seconds behind I am here. Okay, so I might
have faster TV in Washington D.C.
You probably do. Okay, so there, Albania is in transition. I'm at 94.0456 on my. So what are you at? 25 seconds ahead of me?
more than that.
Oh, wow. 94, 12, 13, 14, 15. So, all right. So they're getting close. Good through ball. Oh, deflected. Oh, okay. So now they just scored. So 94-21 just happened.
Way to undersell it there, John.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said an update. So, I mean, I figured everybody else had seen it before me. So Croatia, Croatia,
didn't want to be
Albania.
a spoiler for some people.
Oh, come on now. So, all right, we're tied at 2 with about 90 seconds to go, and it's less than that. So, I am
Albania scored a little bit earlier. It was a great play. The Albanian player took a knee or shin to the face, but now Albania. And I go back to my original theory that Croatia is washed.
Yes, I'm right there with you. What other matches tonight intrigue you here in the midweek? As it's 3 matches in 8 days for everybody almost.
Well, I mean, I'm really Switzerland for this at.
Yeah, Jason's as you can tell, Jason's Wi-Fi is moody at best in Washington D.C., and so trying to lay out and see when he can drift back.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi doesn't like.
No, it doesn't like the fact that Croatia equalized with time running out in the Euros. So you mentioned what's going on today in the Euros and match day. Let me go ahead, since we're 10 minutes to wrap, go ahead and go broadcast plans at 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app. Yeah, Jason is getting the Secret Service treatment. I think so. He's getting analyzed for everything that he's been saying. Yes. Broadcast plans for you and Mike.
Broadcast plans 6:30, Five Stripes Countdown, 7:40 kick, 92.9 The Game, and the Odyssey app. And then I'll be back in Atlanta for Argentina and Canada tomorrow. Atlanta soccer tonight. After the match, I'll be at Reverb by Hard Rock. Ooh. Come say hello, and we'll be talking about a big, big day in Atlanta soccer tomorrow.
And then you've got Decatur FC on Friday, flying out first.
Decatur FC Friday, flying to St. Louis on Saturday morning. Then another AST live show Sunday night at O'Sullivan's in downtown Decatur. Decatur FC watch party, U.S. men's national team watch party. And AST will be live on 92.9 The Game and the Odyssey app from 9 to 11 Sunday night.
Yes, so it's it'll officially be the summer of soccer at that point. Enjoy DC, my friend, and get yourself some good sidewalk hot dogs on your way to Audi Field, and we will catch up with you Friday. You figure?
Yes, possibly, maybe. Who knows? If I'm alive.
Exactly. So if he's alive, we'll see you Friday. Be good, my friend. Have a great call.
Adios.